is a chat with Judge Roy Moore. He is in the studio with us. He's just declared that he is going to form an exploratory committee. That is the first step, the first legal step in pursuing the office of presidency. How serious are you about this? How committed to you are this? Because that's a big deal.
Well, it's a big deal, and it's a big commitment for myself and my family. I've been traveling for 15 years, speaking across the country. I've got contacts in every state. I've got people that have asked me for years and years to do this. I've hesitated to do it because, for one reason or another, I've got young children still in school. I've got a boy, and my baby boy, I call him, 6'3", 240 pounds, is a junior in high school. And but he's got one more year to play ball, and it's just been a difficult decision. But I'm forming an exploratory committee. I have a lot of people in Iowa here who've asked me. Danny Carroll here has been a great friend, and is.
So I was going to ask you, Danny, to what degree is this? You're supporting this, obviously. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here.
Yes, the judge has asked me to help him with an Iowa organization. I'm honored to be a part of that. Like you, Jan, I've been impressed with the judge's stand for some time, and I'm particularly impressed with his qualifications and experience as we look at the upcoming Iowa caucuses. And more to the point, someone who has an intimate legal knowledge and understanding of the Constitution of the United States of Iowa and how that Constitution was seen or anticipated would affect government over the decades. And I think it's about time that we had someone with that kind of knowledge and understanding of the Constitution in the White House. Well,
let me just ask a couple of diagnostic questions here, Doc, because the court case that was so explosive here that caused Iowans to rise up and vote 3 standing judges out of office. They would have voted everybody out of office had they been up for re-election, right, or retention, rather. We're still trying to figure out how to put the pieces back together. Iowa wants to vote on this. Iowans want to vote and add this to the Constitution. One legislator says, no, we're not going to allow them to vote on this. You said earlier that they struck the DOMA law. To what degree is that law? Is it off the books?
Well, they declared it unconstitutional.
Does that mean it's not on the books?
That means that they said that law is unconstitutional, cannot be enforced.
Is that their opinion, or is that?
I think that's their opinion.
Okay.
I think that the governor and the attorney general have the right on enforcement of the law not to enforce the, I believe, unlawful orders of the court to mandate some other form of marriage.
What's the next step then if the voters can't vote on it?
Well, I think if the voters can't vote on it, they ought to be looking at the legislators who are keeping them from voting and change
his
the
name
makeup
is Michael
of the
Senator Gronstal.
Well,
he's been Gronstalling, as we call it here in Iowa.
They need to change the makeup of the legislature.
Is there anything in between that?
Well, I think that, it's very clear. 40 out of the 50 states in our country have either adopted constitutional amendments or DOMA laws. I think they could pass another DOMA law, and I think that the legislature, as I know it, and here in Iowa, is speaking up. And it's like you said, it's one person keeping them from doing it.
I guess I'm asking a more theoretical question because I'm going to lead to the next phase of this. Would be if Iowa reasserts DOMA and puts it in the Iowa Constitution. It gets already on its way to the federal, the U.S. Supreme Court. What happens if the U.S. Supreme Court decides that all of these DOMA laws are unconstitutional? What tools do we have in our arsenal then?
Well, we've got a problem if they do that. I think a constitutional amendment. I think a constitutional amendment right now, today, if passed by 2/3 of both houses of Congress, would fly through the country. And normally it takes constitutional amendments many years. For example, if you note the 27th Amendment that was passed in 1992, do you know when it was first proposed?
Which one? Are you talking about the national?
27th.
Okay.
Restriction on raising your pay during the term of your office.
Probably in the 40s.
1789.
It took a while.
1789. It was proposed as one of the first of 12 amendments.
Right. All right, more basic than that, Judge Moore. I guess it would be that you're talking about separation of powers, division
Right.
of powers. If the court, our framers said if a court or even the legislature issues an unlawful order, it's null and void.
It's null and void. That's right.
So it's unenforceable, and it's as if no law had passed at all or no ruling exists whatsoever. If everybody pretends that it exists, even if it doesn't, then we have to go through all these steps. What about a legislative here in the state of Iowa? The legislature reasserts DOMA and removes the appellate jurisdiction of the court. Why can't the federal legislature do exactly the same thing? We're reasserting DOMA. Thank you for sharing, Supreme Court, but we don't agree, and we're going to remove your jurisdiction.
They can remove the jurisdiction. You know, federal courts are completely subject, except the United States Supreme Court original jurisdiction, are subject to the Congress. They can cancel the courts. They can change the appellate jurisdictions. They can do anything under the Constitution because the lower federal courts are made by Congress, not by the Constitution. The only one made by the Constitution, of course, is the Supreme Court.
But they have the original jurisdiction only in those areas that it's designated.
It's designated. That's right.
But the legislature can tell them.
That's right. That's right. That's article. I think that's article. I recall the article.
So do we have to go through all the song and dance of amending the Constitution, either of Iowa or of the feds, to get rid of one stupid Supreme Court ruling, including Roe versus Wade or a DOMA revocation?
I don't think so. But I was just pointing out that under the present circumstances in this country, there is no state that has adopted same-sex marriage by vote of the people. No state. It's either through the leadership of the legislature or the courts, as here in Iowa. Iowa is only one of 5 states to sanction same-sex marriage, and that was through their judicial branch, not through the people or the legislature. And I think that the great mood in this country is to retain traditional marriage, to which I agree. It's not only the right thing to do morally, it's the right thing to do economically. You know, this is going to have a serious impact, and what the president is doing in the military right now is going to have a serious impact on the economy and the military budget. And nobody's looking at that aspect. Well, because if two men can go on and have housing declared eligible for housing on the military, that's going to cost the military.
Or spousal equivalency benefits and health benefits, yes.
Right.
All right, yeah. Speaking of retention and judicial selection, we're arguing about that here in the state of Iowa. We have the Missouri plan. You think that's something we should revisit?
Oh, I think you should revisit the Missouri plan. The Missouri plan differs. See, in Alabama, we don't have the Missouri plan. Of course, we've got people pushing for it because they say, well, elections are so expensive. Well, I've always been the underdog in elections as far as money. When I ran, $3 million was put against me in that election, in a Republican primary, mind you. And I didn't have near that amount, but I won. I don't like when lawyers are recommending judges to the governor, as you do here in the state. The people have no input into it.
Right.
And I think that, that's the problem you got. These judges have become so arrogant in their jobs that they think they can make up whatever law they do, and it's not the right of the people to remove them. Well, even under your system of retention, the people have the right not to retain justice for any reason they want. It's just like an election, only there's no opponent to that judge.
The cliche was, they got fired just for doing their job.
They weren't doing their job. They were making up law. If you go back and look at the equal protection law provision that they've used, they're saying they were similarly situated, 2 men as 1 man and 1 woman. Well, you can't tell the difference between men and women anymore. That's a problem.
All right, let's talk to as many people as we can. This is Steve. Good morning, Steve. Earth to Steve. You're talking with Judge Moore. Let's go back to Mike. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, Jan.
Hi.
Good morning, Judge Moore.
Good morning.
Last week I called and I had this sudden newfound enthusiasm for Mr. Donald Trump because he seems like he has the cojones to actually step up and has the courage of his convictions and is willing to confront the other side without any embarrassment, shame, or
right.
reservation. That is very attractive to those of us who identify with the Tea Party movement.
Yes.
However, I listened to an interview that he had on Limbaugh the other day, and I discovered that he's not what I thought he was. Thank you, Judge Moore, for announcing an exploratory commission.
Well, thank you, Mike.
Mr. Trump was willing to make a business argument based on his business convictions.
Sure.
You, however, sir, are willing to make one on a moral conviction and have already demonstrated that you're willing to pay the price to express those convictions. And I applaud you for that. You will have my vote.
Well, thank you, Mike. Let me say that I appreciate your recognition that it takes more than what you say. It's what you do. We can at least recognize Obama. He does what he believes in principle, although it's different principles than what I stand for. We need conservatives that believe in the Constitution who will stand for those principles. And by the way, on my website, I have listed my qualifications, and the first of which is my birth certificate. I think we've got to, and I'm serious about this. You know, Arizona has just proposed a law to have every candidate produce their birth certificate.
So is Iowa, who we've introduced it. I don't know if it's going to go anywhere, but it's there.
Well, it should. It's the right of every state before they put people on the ballot to ensure they go by the Constitution of the United States.
Yes.
You know, the Constitution of the United States is mandated for every state official as well as for every federal official under the Constitution. We're all sworn to the Constitution, and if they have a question about it, they should be able to ask, and I just didn't want them to ask me, so I put it on my website.
I'll take a short time out. We'll come back in a moment on 1040 WHO Radio.